House Krix of the Dorvian Nobility did not consider humans worth their notice. Personal Attaché Emilio Santos had learned this in his first week of diplomatic service, through direct experience. He had been carrying a data tray across the reception hall when Lord Krix's trailing garment had snagged on his boot. Rather than acknowledge the accident, Lord Krix had looked at Emilio with undisguised contempt and performed the Dorvian gesture of highest insult, deliberately spitting on his shoes, in front of 37 witnesses, including the entire Galactic Coalition diplomatic corps. Emilio set down the data tray. He straightened his jacket. He looked at Lord Krix with the same expression one might use when examining a mildly interesting insect. "You're aware," he said pleasantly, "that Earth joined the coalition under the Personal Dignity Accords, Article 9, which classifies deliberate humiliation of a coalition member's diplomat as a Category 2 protocol violation carrying mandatory tribunal review." Lord Krix stared at him. "I'll need your full title and identification for the filing." Emilio picked up his data tray again. "For the forms." The hall had gone quiet. Not abruptly. Diplomatic silence rarely is, but gradually as conversations tapered off and attention shifted. Witnesses who had initially treated the incident as a minor display of Dorvian arrogance now began to recognize the shift in tone. What had started as a moment of casual disrespect was no longer contained within social norms. It had entered procedural territory. Lord Krix, accustomed to deference and the unspoken hierarchy of his own status, seemed momentarily unsure how to proceed. His posture remained rigid, but there was a subtle tension in the set of his shoulders that had not been present before. "You presume to cite coalition statute?" he said, voice controlled but edged with disbelief. Emilio's expression did not change. "I'm required to," he replied. "It's part of the documentation process." He tapped lightly on the interface embedded in his tray, bringing up a standardized report form. Fields appeared. Incident description, involved parties, witness verification, classification code. "Shall we proceed?" he asked. No one moved to intervene. Among the assembled diplomats, a few exchanged glances. Some had encountered Article 9 before, but rarely invoked so cleanly, so immediately, and with such calm precision. In most cases, protocol violations were raised after escalation. This one had been documented at the moment of occurrence. The difference mattered. Lord Krix's gaze shifted between Emilio and the surrounding observers. What had been a display of dominance now sat under scrutiny, constrained by rules he had not expected to apply in such a direct and immediate way. After a pause, he spoke. "This is unnecessary." Emilio nodded slightly. "That will be addressed during review." The tribunal convened 6 months later. In that time, Emilio continued his duties without interruption. He did not comment on the case in informal settings. He did not engage in public discourse about it. When asked, he redirected inquiries to the appropriate legal channels with the same measured professionalism he applied to all matters. He attended each tribunal session in person, dressed impeccably, arriving on time, speaking only when required. His statements were factual, concise, and free of embellishment. Witness accounts were submitted. The footage from the reception hall was reviewed. The procedural classification under Article 9 was confirmed without dispute. Lord Krix, represented by counsel, attempted to frame the incident as a misunderstanding of cultural norms. The tribunal acknowledged the argument. It did not accept it. Under coalition law, intentional acts of public humiliation against accredited diplomats were not subject to cultural exemption when committed within formal diplomatic spaces. The ruling was consistent with precedent. The outcome was not ambiguous. Lord Krix was stripped of his diplomatic credentials. A financial penalty of 40 million galactic credits was imposed. A formal apology was mandated as part of the resolution. The final session was brief. Lord Krix entered, accompanied by his legal representative. He delivered the required statement, carefully constructed and approved in advance. The language adhered to protocol, though the tone carried visible restraint. Emilio stood as the apology was delivered. His posture was straight, his expression neutral, composed, and attentive. When the statement concluded, Emilio inclined his head slightly. "Thank you, Lord Krix." The words were simple, measured, delivered without emphasis beyond courtesy. No added remarks followed. No visible satisfaction. No indication of personal gratification. And yet, those present noted the precision of the moment. The symmetry between violation and resolution. The absence of excess in either direction. For Lord Krix, the experience lingered far beyond the tribunal. Not as humiliation in the emotional sense he had intended for Emilio, but as consequence, structured and inescapable within the framework he had chosen to ignore. Within Dorvian circles, the case became a quiet reference point. A reminder. Among the Coalition diplomatic corps, it became part of standardized training. Article 9 was included in orientation materials for all new members, accompanied by documented case summaries. A short note was added to the margin of the training brief. When in doubt, remember what happened to Lord Krix. And for many who reviewed the material, the lesson was not about punishment. It was about recognition. Recognition that in a system governed by shared agreements, status alone does not override accountability. Emilio Santos continued his career without public comment on the case. But in future receptions, meetings, and negotiations, his presence carried a subtle, unspoken effect. Not because he sought attention, but because others had learned, through a single, carefully handled incident, that underestimating a human diplomat was not merely impolite. It was, in certain circumstances, procedurally unwise. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.